What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao, bringing you the latest news from here in Taipei. U.S. President Donald Trump says market volatility is a necessary medicine as Asian stocks plunge after his tariff announcement last week. So far, those have hit this region the hardest. Our reporter Tiffany Wong is at the Taiwan Stock Exchange, where the market just closed. Tiffany, what's the damage look like there?
Taiwan is one of the hardest hit markets in Asia today. The benchmark index, the TAIEX, closing under 20,000 points after a 10% drop early this morning. That's the biggest single day drop in the stock market's history. Now, this is the first market response we've seen to that 32% tariff imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump on exports from Taiwan. And he announced that right before a long 4-day weekend in Taiwan. Now, shares in tech giants like TSMC and Foxconn also took a plunge of about 10% this morning, also triggering trading restrictions on their stocks. And about 1,000 other stocks on this exchange also triggered those trading curbs. Now, Taiwan's government did anticipate these drops coming, and they did try to implement some measures like massive limits on short selling, which is when investors sell off their shares in anticipation that the price will drop. But Taiwan's financial regulator emphasized that these are temporary measures that should only last the week. But just this morning, the Taiwan Stock Exchange Corporation called for an emergency meeting before the market opened to try and reassure investors that the market will stabilize.
台湾证券交易所呼吁投资人 给予我国的企业、政府信心，台湾产业的韧性，赋予我国政府的权力的资源，必能充分因应全球局势的挑战。短期市场的波动应回归基本面的理性评估，审慎面对近期台股震荡的走势。
So we can see that the regulators are trying to reassure investors that the market will stabilize. But based on the trading today, it looks like investors are still jittery about these tariffs.
And Tiffany, how are other Asian markets doing? I mean, the entire region has been hit hard by these tariffs.
Well, Asia has been hit the hardest by these tariffs from Trump, and it's a bloodbath in the markets today. Shanghai and Hong Kong also opened their exchanges after a long weekend, and Shanghai dropped over 6%, and the Hang Seng index took over an 11% dip during the day. Japan's Nikkei index also triggered a circuit breaker early in the morning after dropping 8%, but has now stabilized to about 6%. Now, all of these governments have been scrambling to implement new measures and try to minimize the impacts of Trump's tariffs.
Thanks, Tiffany. That was Tiffany Wong at the TAIEX reporting on the stock situation after Trump's tariffs. Now, while local markets are down, Taiwan will not be seeking retaliation over those tariffs. President Lai Ching-te has offered 0 tariffs as the basis for negotiations with Washington. This is part of a strategy he says will protect Taiwanese prosperity. Joyce Sung has more.
各位国人同胞，大家好。
In a video addressed to the nation, Taiwan President Lai Ching-te laid out his plan to safeguard the economy 4 days after U.S. President Donald Trump waged 32% tariffs on Taiwanese goods, excluding chips, a move Taipei says is strongly unreasonable. Despite that, Lai announced that Taiwan will not pursue reciprocal action.
台湾没有计划采取 关税报复，企业对美国的投资承诺，只要符合国家利益，也不会有任何改变。
Lai also pledged to proactively remove non-tariff barriers, which could include Taiwanese restrictions on U.S. meat and cars, which Washington highlighted just days before Trump's announcement of broad global tariffs, a move by Lai to show the U.S. that trade with Taiwan is fair. Trump's new tariffs aim to stop what he says is his country being ripped off, including by allies. Washington says over 50 countries have now reached out to talk trade.
Just so you understand the power of what I'm doing, every country is calling and being very solicitous of us.
Tokyo, which faces a 24% tariff, will continue to ask Trump to lower its tariff rate, with Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru saying he's willing to meet with Trump directly. Bangkok, facing a 36% tariff, has pledged to buy more U.S. energy and aircraft. Meanwhile, Beijing has hit back hard, imposing 34% tariffs on U.S. goods in retaliation. The EU and Canada also vowing to strike back. In Taipei, Lai is offering zero tariffs as the basis for negotiations, as part of his 5-point strategy. But he's also been firm, saying Taiwan will make clear its role in American prosperity.
我们要让美国清楚知道，台湾对于美国经济发展的贡献。
Lai has also vowed to buy more American goods, but some economists warn this may not be enough to get at the heart of the issue, Taiwan's large trade surplus with the U.S. and its reputation in Washington as a currency manipulator. Economists point to Taiwan's central bank and how, for years, it's kept the exchange rate low.
The central bank would never, ever admit that they are intervening the market. They always say that we only intervene the market to the extent that we want to stabilize the currency, but that's not true. The exchange rate policy is very influential because once you change that, it's going to reduce the trade surplus immediately.
Meanwhile, Lai's cabinet has put forward a $2.7 billion package to help local firms weather the storm, a plan that must now pass an opposition-led legislature. The head of the Taiwan People's Party speaking out against Lai, saying the president should have been more prepared for Trump's 32% tariff rate.
过去这几天，清楚地看得出来，民进党政府对基本资讯的收集都出现了严重的问题。
The administration will be looking to get both the opposition Kuomintang and Taiwan People's Party on board and set aside ongoing political spats to band together and protect Taiwan's interest as the U.S.'s imminent tariffs stand to upend the global economy. Howard Zhang, Patrick Chen, and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
And Trump's hefty tariffs have rocked more than just the stock market here. Local manufacturers are already being told by their U.S. customers to suspend deliveries.
客户当然，他现在也是很紧张啊，就变成说要求说先那个停止出货啊，自己那个来付这个关税，不可能嘛。
Taiwanese manufacturers of plumbing and hardware products say the new 32% tariffs have made it unprofitable for their U.S. customers to keep buying from them. The U.S. has long been a major market, with the industry here exporting around $6 billion worth of goods there every year. That's roughly 10% of the total domestic output. Local industry groups are calling the situation a disaster. The U.S.'s tariff policies are threatening the dreams of U.S. entrepreneurs too, like one who moved from Shanghai to sell Chinese wines in the U.S. But that's now at serious risk. Rosie Greninger reports.
After spotting a gap in the market for Chinese wines, entrepreneur Camden Hogg decided to import bottles from boutique vineyards to the US. But just before her business officially launched, US President Donald Trump's fresh tariffs on China have threatened to upend the venture. Trump slapped Beijing with an additional 34% tariff, bringing the overall rate to 74%.
China going up to 74% is something that is so catastrophic for my brand new business that I think I might just have to wait and see. I think it's absolutely slowed my ability to order new pallets to come in.
Hogg spent 10 years in Shanghai, founding popular restaurants, when she noticed the increasing popularity of Chinese wines.
在我们门店的话，就是中国客户跟外国客户都对我们中国葡萄酒都有很好的反响。对。
Trump claims the tariffs will encourage US consumers to buy more American-made goods and boost manufacturing, in turn supporting more domestic jobs. But Hogg says it's had the opposite effect for her, preventing her from living what she calls the American dream due to the heavy cost of the new import duties.
I can't think of a more ridiculous story that kind of flies in the face of what is seeming to be done by allowing these trade wars to happen. So you're not just keeping trade in your own country. I think that the illusion of creating more American jobs here by hampering the ability of us to do business it's just that, it's an illusion.
Financial experts have warned Trump's measures will lead to price increases in the US, something Hawke says domestic consumers may not be able to handle.
I've already been so shocked by the cost of living in America, even over 1 or 2 weeks, that if this leads to a recession and people don't have the ability to pay for everyday goods, let alone little luxuries like wine, or perhaps people like me, we consider wine an everyday good, I think that that's going to be very, very tough for Americans.
China has hit back at the US with a raft of countermeasures, deepening the trade war between the world's two biggest economies. And as many other countries follow suit, US importers and consumers alike are feeling the pain of this decision in their wallets. Eason Pan and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
More than 1,000 demonstrations took place over the weekend in cities across the U.S. against President Donald Trump and his ally Elon Musk, the world's richest man.
I think it's important to speak up. I think silence is not an option. I think you have to stay engaged. You have to stay vigilant. I think it's not only for our community at large, but the world at large. I think that enough is enough.
It's done. I mean, the guy is completely out of control. And to see this country just melt down in such a quick and just nauseating way, it's just crazy.
The so-called hands-off protesters accused Trump of executive overreach and of seeking to undermine U.S. institutions and the rule of law. They also objected to the role being played by Musk, whose Department of Government Efficiency has overseen the cutting of over 200,000 government jobs. Demonstrations were also held in several European cities, mostly attended by U.S. citizens living abroad. Foreign ministers from the G7 group of nations have expressed deep concern about China's recent military drills around Taiwan. In a joint statement, they called for the peaceful resolution of cross-strait issues through constructive dialogue. The statement, released on Sunday, says China's increasingly frequent and destabilizing activities are putting global security at risk. Last week, China's military launched live-fire and simulated blockade drills near Taiwan, involving more than 100 aircraft and a dozen naval ships. The last time G7 foreign ministers issued such a statement was in August of 2022, when China launched live-fire drills around Taiwan after then U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited the country. South Korea's parliamentary speaker is calling for new limits to presidential powers by revising the country's constitution.
지금 국민의 열망은 극한 정치 갈등의 원인인 제왕적 대통령제, 승자 독식 정치 구조를 바꾸라는 것입니다.
Speaker Woo Won-shik says last week's court ruling to uphold former President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment has ended a period of national strife. Yoon was removed from office for his brief declaration of martial law in December. Woo is now calling for a referendum, citing strong public support for constitutional change. And thanks for joining us for What's Up Taiwan. Head over to our website for more of our stories or follow us on social media. Finally, check out these elderly cats enjoying their retirement in South Africa. I'm Eric Gao. Take care. We'll see you next time.
For more stories from Taiwan, around the world, and Washington, D.C., please download the TaiwanPlus app and follow us on social media.
For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.